Your coworker makes an offhand remark about your presentation style. For the rest of the day, you are replaying it, stressed, convinced it was a personal attack. That single comment ruins your mood, creates tension, and steals your mental energy. This happens because we are wired to take things personally, but 2,000-year-old wisdom says we do not have to be. The core idea of Stoicism is simple yet revolutionary. Our suffering does not come from the events themselves, but from our judgments about them. This means you have a hidden power you might not be using. By the end of this, you will have 25 concrete, ancient techniques to build an emotional armor so strong that criticism and casual rudeness will simply bounce off. We are going to explore how to stop that spiral before it starts, how to install a kind of mental firewall against other people's opinions. What is one small comment you allowed to bother you far more than it should have? This is where the first technique comes in, and it is perhaps the most powerful perspective shift Stoicism offers. It is called the view from above. When a comment or a situation feels like a personal attack, your mind is zoomed in, focused on the sting, the slight, the immediate hurt. The view from above asks you to do the opposite. Mentally, you pull the camera back, far back. Start by seeing yourself in the room, then the building, then your city from above. See the streets, the thousands of lives being lived, each with their own worries and joys. Pull back further, seeing the entire country, the continent, the whole blue and green sphere of Earth hanging in the blackness of space. From that vantage point, your problem, that one remark, how large does it appear? It becomes a speck, invisible. This is not about making your feelings insignificant. It is about giving them the correct proportion. That person who snapped at you from this cosmic view is also a tiny speck on that same planet, dealing with their own invisible struggles, traffic jams, insecurities, and pressures you know nothing about. Their behavior is far more likely a reflection of their internal weather than a deliberate judgment on you. Practicing this is like installing a mental zoom lens. In the moment of feeling slighted, take one deep breath and pull back. Ask yourself, in the grand scheme of my life, in the vast history of humanity, how much will this matter in a week, a month, a year? The answer almost always shrinks the offense down to a manageable size, revealing that you are not the center of that person's universe in that moment. You are just a passing character in their own story. That cosmic perspective gives you space, but the next technique gives you a clear action plan. This is the Stoic bedrock, the single most practical filter for any difficult situation, the dichotomy of control. The principle is disarmingly simple. Some things are within our control and some things are not. Your own thoughts, your judgments, your actions, your desires, and your responses, these are yours to command. Everything else, the opinions of others, their actions, the past, the future, the weather, the traffic, the stock market, these are not within your direct control. The immediate gut reaction when someone insults you is to try and control their opinion, to make them take it back, to force them to see you differently. This is where we waste immense energy and invite endless frustration. You are trying to command the storm instead of steering your own ship. Think of yourself as the captain. Your hands are on the helm, your decisions set the course, your discipline maintains the crew. That is your sphere of control, but you do not control the sea. You cannot stop the storm from gathering, you cannot command the wind to cease. A skilled captain does not rage against the ocean. They focus intently on adjusting the sails, securing the deck, and holding the ship steady. When you feel a comment was personal, apply this filter immediately. Ask yourself one question: is this within my control? Their words, their tone, their attitude, their bad day? No. Those belong to the storm. Your interpretation of their words, your decision not to internalize their mood, your choice to respond with grace or simply to carry on with your work, yes. That is your helm. Your energy is a finite resource. The Stoic move is to withdraw every single ounce of effort you are spending trying to manage the uncontrollable and pour it entirely into mastering your own reaction. This is not passive acceptance, it is active focus. By deliberately shifting your attention to what you can actually influence, you reclaim your power from the situation. You stop being a victim of their weather and become the author of your own journey. The next time a harsh email lands or a sideways glance is thrown your way, pause. Mentally sort the event. Their action goes in the box labeled "not mine." Your response goes in the box labeled "mine." Then, with calm determination, invest everything you have into that second box. Mastering your own ship is a daily practice, but the sea remains unpredictable. People will still say things, criticism will still arrive, and rejection is a part of life. How do you prepare for those moments so they do not knock you off course? The Stoics had a drill for this, a mental exercise that sounds counterintuitive but is incredibly effective. They called it the premeditation of evils, but a simpler name is practicing misfortune. This is not about pessimism or expecting the worst to happen. It is about vaccination. You expose your mind to a small, controlled dose of a potential hardship to build immunity, so when or if it actually occurs, you are not caught off guard and emotionally devastated. You have already been there in your mind and you have a plan. Think of it as a fire drill for your emotions. You do not hope for a fire, but you practice the exit route so you do not panic when the alarm sounds. Let us apply this directly to taking things personally. You have a big meeting tomorrow where you will present a new idea. Your gut already fears a particular colleague might dismiss it or make a sarcastic comment. Right now, that fear is a vague, haunting ghost. It has power because it is unknown. The Stoic technique is to bring that ghost into the light and disarm it. Sit quietly and deliberately imagine the scenario. Picture your colleague leaning back and saying, "Honestly, I do not see the value here. This seems like a waste of time." In your mental rehearsal, feel the initial sting, that flush of heat. Then watch yourself. You do not flinch. You do not become defensive. You take a calm breath and you have your pre-planned response ready. Perhaps it is, "Thank you for that perspective. I will be happy to walk through the data that supports this approach." Or, "I appreciate the feedback. Let me consider that and follow up." The goal is not to win an argument in your imagination, but to practice your own composure. You are training your nervous system to recognize this event not as a catastrophe, but as a manageable situation you have already navigated. By mentally walking through the potential criticism, you strip it of its surprise and its emotional venom. When you face the real situation, a part of your brain recognizes the territory. It says, we have practiced for this." The comment lands, and instead of a personal wound, it feels like a cue to execute your calm, prepared response. This rehearsal builds emotional calluses. It teaches you that you can handle disapproval, that you can survive a rude remark, and that your worth is not shattered by someone else's momentary opinion. You are no longer a passive target, you are a prepared participant. That mental rehearsal builds resilience, but it requires a fundamental shift in how you interpret the world. Every time you feel personally attacked, your mind is telling you a story where you are the main character, and their comment is the central plot point. Stoicism asks you to rewrite that narrative from the very first page. The fourth technique is this: it is not about you, it is about them. This is not a comforting platitude. It is a psychological fact observed by the Stoics. A person's words and actions are a direct reflection of their own character, their own judgments, and their own internal weather. They are a window into their soul, not a mirror held up to yours. Think of the last time someone was rude to you for no apparent reason. Perhaps a driver honked aggressively in traffic, or a cashier snapped at you in a store. Your immediate, wounded interpretation might be, "What did I do wrong?" But the Stoic interpretation is far more likely and far more liberating. That driver is not honking at you, the person. They are honking at the traffic, at their own lateness, at the stress of their entire day. You are merely a temporary obstacle in the path of their frustration. Their rudeness is a leak, an overflow from a container already filled with their own anxiety. Their action tells you nothing about your driving and everything about their capacity to handle pressure in that moment. Apply this to a more personal sphere like the workplace. A manager delivers overly harsh criticism on a project. The unexamined story is, they think I am incompetent, they do not respect my work, this is a judgment on my value. The Stoic story is, this manager is likely under immense pressure from their own superiors. They are insecure about the team's performance reflecting on them. They lack the emotional skill to deliver feedback constructively. Their criticism is a broadcast of their own internal state, a signal of their fears, not a calibrated review of your worth. To see this clearly, you must practice seeing others as flawed, complex human beings acting from their own nature. Everyone is the protagonist of their own difficult story, fighting battles you cannot see. When someone acts poorly, you are often just a bystander who happened to be standing where their shrapnel landed. Your task is to stop collecting the shrapnel and examining it as if it carried a secret message about you. It does not, it only tells you that a battle was raging within them. This reframe is a superpower of emotional detachment. It allows you to observe poor behavior as data about the other person, rather than absorbing it as a verdict on yourself. You can acknowledge that a comment was unkind or an action was unfair without letting it define your inner landscape. You see the leak and you simply choose not to stand in the dripping water. The next time you feel the sting of a personal remark, pause and ask yourself one question. What does this behavior reveal about them right now in this moment? You will almost always find an answer that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the storm happening inside someone else's mind. Rewriting the narrative is one thing, but stopping the initial story from forming in the first place requires a more advanced skill. This is the Stoic practice known as the discipline of assent. It is the art of creating a critical pause between the thing that happens and your automatic, emotional judgment about it. Think of your mind as a courtroom. An impression walks in, a piece of evidence like they just ignored my suggestion. The untrained mind immediately bangs the gavel and declares a verdict. They do not respect me, my idea was stupid. Case closed. The discipline of assent is you acting as the judge, stopping the proceedings. You look at that impression and you say, hold on, let us examine this evidence before we reach a verdict. Is this necessarily an insult? What other explanations exist? You are not a passive recipient of thoughts, you are an active gatekeeper. The Stoics called these initial impressions fantasiae, like images or notifications that pop up on the screen of your mind. You have the power, the discipline to not click on them, to not assent to their truth. In modern terms, it is like catching a mental pass. Someone throws a comment your way, a ball of perceived insult. You do not have to catch it and immediately run with it toward the end zone of anger or self-pity. You can see it spiraling toward you, and you can choose to let it fall harmlessly to the ground, or better yet, catch it, examine it, and then decide it is not a ball you want to play with at all. How does this work in a real moment? You are in a team chat and someone writes, "This report feels a bit rushed. Did we have enough time?" The immediate flashing impression is a personal attack on your diligence. This is where you insert the pause. Take one breath, just one. In that tiny space, interrogate the impression. Ask, is this statement necessarily about my character? What is the actual evidence? The words say the report feels rushed. That is feedback on a document, not a verdict on my soul. Other possible explanations, they are worried about the timeline themselves. They have a different standard for thoroughness. They are genuinely asking a logistical question. By examining the impression, you see it for what it is, a piece of data, not a dagger. You then choose your assent. You can assent to a neutral interpretation. They are commenting on the work product, not me. Or you can reject the hurtful narrative entirely. This does not mean you ignore feedback. It means you receive it clearly without the distorting static of personal offense. You can now respond to the content of the comment, not the emotional charge you almost attached to it. You might reply, "Thanks for flagging that. Let us review the sections you have concerns about." The entire emotional trajectory of the interaction changes because you governed your own mind first. You stopped the dominoes from falling. This discipline turns you from a reactor into an investigator, constantly asking that simple, powerful question of your initial impressions: is this true, or am I just assuming it is? The courtroom of your mind is now in session, but a truly unshakable peace requires a verdict that goes beyond mere acceptance. It demands a radical, almost paradoxical embrace. This is the sixth technique, amor fati, the love of your fate. The Stoics did not advise you to just tolerate criticism or shrug off insults. They invited you to welcome them, to see every slight, every piece of negative feedback, every awkward social interaction as not just acceptable, but as essential fuel for the very fire of your character. Think of a blacksmith's forge. The fire does not discriminate. It does not say, "I only want the clean, dry oak. I refuse this damp, smoky coal." It takes whatever fuel is given, and it uses all of it to generate the intense heat needed to temper steel. The fire transforms everything into strength. Amor fati asks you to become that fire. When someone offers you what feels like an insult, your instinct is to reject it, to throw it back, to protect yourself from its heat. But what if instead you saw it as a piece of fuel delivered directly to your forge? This person, perhaps without knowing it, is handing you the exact material you need to practice patience, to cultivate understanding, to strengthen your resolve. Their rudeness is not an obstacle to your peace, it is the necessary friction that sharpens it. How does this look in practice? You receive a harsh, unfair review at work. The old story screams injustice, personal attack, a reason for despair. The amor fati story whispers perfect. This is the exact challenge I needed. This review is my training ground for resilience. It is the heavy weight that will make my emotional muscles grow. By choosing to love this event, to see it as a necessary and even valuable part of your path, you perform a kind of psychological alchemy. You transmute the poison of offense into the medicine of growth. The insult no longer has power to offend you because you have reclassified it in your mind. It is no longer a weapon aimed at you, it is a tool handed to you. It is the rough sandpaper that smooths the rough edges of your pride. This does not mean you become a doormat or that you agree with unfair criticism. It means you stop fighting the reality of its occurrence. You look at the event and say, "This happened for me, not to me. This is the material I have been given to work with today, and I will use it to build something stronger." When you can look at a person who has been difficult and feel a flicker of gratitude for the opportunity they have provided you to practice virtue, you have achieved a level of freedom that few ever experience. You are no longer at the mercy of other people's behavior because you have learned to use all of it, especially the difficult bits, as the very substance of your own transformation. The world stops happening to you and starts happening for you. Loving your fate transforms the fuel, but the forge still needs clean material to work with. Too often, we are not reacting to the event itself, but to the elaborate, painful story we have instantly built on top of it. Our minds are master storytellers, and when we feel slighted, we write entire novels in a split second. The seventh technique is a radical act of editing, to see only the event and delete the story. This means learning to distinguish between the bare, observable fact and the emotional narrative we layer onto it. The fact is neutral, a simple recording of what happened. The story is personal, a dramatic interpretation laced with judgment and fear. Think of it like watching a silent film with two different soundtracks. The film shows a person glancing at their watch while you are talking. That is the event, the silent footage. The first soundtrack, the story you might automatically play, is full of ominous music and a narrator saying, "They are bored with me, they find me tedious, they cannot wait to get away." The second soundtrack, the one that states only the fact, has no music at all, just a calm voice stating they looked at their watch, which one feels like a personal attack. Which one is simply a piece of data? The sting always comes from the soundtrack we choose, not from the silent film. Let us apply this to a common hurt. The bare fact might be, my partner did not text me back for 5 hours. That is the observable event. The story we tell ourselves is a whirlwind. They are ignoring me. They do not care. Something must be wrong. Maybe they are angry about last night. We feel anxious, hurt, or resentful, but we are not reacting to the 5-hour silence. We are reacting to the catastrophic novel we wrote about it. The Stoic move is to consciously strip the narrative away. State only the fact out loud if you need to. My partner did not respond to my text for 5 hours. That is all I know for certain. Every other thought, they are upset, they are neglectful, is a story, a hypothesis my mind has created without evidence. When you isolate the fact, you often find it carries no inherent emotional charge. It is just a thing that occurred. The power drains out of the situation because you have removed the meaning you assigned to it. Practice this like a drill. The next time you feel that familiar twist of personal offense, stop. Ask yourself, what is the bare, observable fact here? Write it down in the simplest, most clinical terms possible. He said the report was incomplete. She did not include me in the meeting invite. They did not laugh at my joke. These are statements a camera could have recorded. Then, look at the story you are telling. He thinks I am lazy and is trying to undermine me. She deliberately excluded me because she does not value my input. They find me unfunny and awkward. See the vast canyon between the two. The fact is a pebble. The story is a mountain you built on top of it. By continually practicing this separation, you train your mind to default to the pebble. You learn to live in the world of facts, which is a calm and manageable place, rather than the world of stories, which is a chaotic and painful theater of your own making. This does not make you cold or unfeeling. It makes you clear-sighted. It allows you to respond to what actually is, rather than to the frightening phantom your imagination has conjured. You start to see that most of the time, you were never actually attacked by another person. You were ambushed by your own runaway narrative. Isolating the bare fact is a powerful act of clarity, but it leaves one question unanswered. Why did we build that painful story in the first place? Often, it is because we held a silent, unshakable expectation that was suddenly violated. We expected the person to act a certain way, to be kind, to be fair, to be prompt, and when they were not, we interpreted that deviation as a personal slight. The eighth technique directly dismantles this source of suffering. It is called the reserve clause, and it is a simple mental footnote that changes everything. For every plan you make, for every expectation you hold about another person's behavior, you silently add the phrase, fate permitting, or if nothing prevents it. This is not pessimism, it is profound realism. It is the acknowledgement that you are not the sole author of the universe, and other people are independent agents with their own wills, flaws, and unpredictable circumstances. When you make plans with a friend, you are not just planning with the friend. You are planning with the friend, fate permitting. They might get stuck in traffic. They might fall ill. They might simply forget. The plan exists in a world of variables. When you submit a project expecting praise, you are expecting praise, fate permitting. Your manager might be distracted by a crisis you know nothing about. They might have a different aesthetic. They might be having the worst day of their year. Your expectation exists alongside a million other possibilities. The magic of the reserve clause is that it prepares your mind for these alternatives before they happen. It builds a cushion of acceptance into your anticipation. Without it, your expectation is a brittle crystal, beautiful and precise. When reality inevitably bumps against it, the crystal shatters, and you feel the sharp edges of betrayal and disappointment. You take it personally because your perfect, fragile script was ruined. With the reserve clause, your expectation is more like a flexible reed. It has a direction, a hope, but it is rooted in the understanding that winds may blow. When the person does not act as you hoped, the reed bends. It does not break. You are disappointed, perhaps, but not devastated, because you had already granted fate permission to intervene. Their action feels less like a targeted betrayal and more like one of the many possible outcomes you had already made space for in your mind. Think of it as emotional probability. You hope for the best, you work for the best, but you intellectually accept that a range of other outcomes is not only possible but normal. You apply for your dream job. You pour your heart into the application. Your expectation is not, "I will get this job." It is, "I will give this my absolute best effort, fate permitting." The committee's final decision is one of those things outside your control. If you get the job, you rejoice. If you do not, while it stings, the blow is softened because you never held the outcome as a certainty. You saw it as a possibility among others. This is especially powerful in interactions where you feel personally snubbed. You share a vulnerable idea with a colleague, expecting support. You add the reserve clause, expecting support if nothing prevents it. What could prevent it? Their own insecurity, a misunderstanding, their preoccupation with a deadline. When they respond with skepticism instead of support, you are better equipped to see it not as a rejection of you, but as the playing out of one of those very real, very possible preventing factors. Their behavior becomes data about the situation, not a verdict on your worth. You hoped for A, but B happened, and you had already made peace with the entire alphabet of possibilities. This mental habit cultivates a profound lightness. You engage with the world, you care deeply, but you hold your expectations with an open hand, not a clenched fist. You begin to see other people's actions as part of the complex, unpredictable tapestry of life, rather than as deliberate threads meant to unravel your own pattern. You stop demanding that reality conform to your private script and instead learn to dance gracefully with whatever music actually plays. Holding expectations with an open hand frees you from the shock of disappointment, but there is an even more profound perspective that can dissolve the sting of an insult entirely. It asks you to consider the ultimate deadline. The ninth technique is memento mori, the practice of remembering that you will die. This sounds morbid, even frightening, but for the Stoics, it was the ultimate tool for creating urgency, gratitude, and most importantly, perspective. When you are locked in the mental spiral of taking a comment personally, you are acting as if you have infinite time, infinite emotional energy to spend on this one moment. Remembering your mortality shatters that illusion. It asks one piercing question on the last day of your life. Looking back, will this interaction, this person's careless remark, this social slight, will it hold any weight at all? The answer is almost always a gentle, liberating no. The argument over the dishes, the passive-aggressive email, the feeling of being left out at a gathering, these are grains of sand on the vast beach of a lifetime. When you zoom out to the scale of your entire existence, most of what we take personally reveals itself for what it truly is: momentary social friction, a brief rustle of leaves in a long, long journey. This is not about diminishing your current feelings. It is about placing them in their proper, humble container. The heat of embarrassment, the cold clutch of rejection, these feelings are real, but they are not permanent landmarks. They are weather passing through the sky of your life. By consciously remembering that your time is finite and precious, you become fiercely protective of it. You start to ask yourself, is this person's opinion worth an hour of my one and only life? Is this resentment worth carrying from this room into the rest of my day? You begin to measure your emotional expenditures against the stark truth of your limited account. The goal is to use this awareness not for fear but for focus. It helps you instantly sort the trivial from the meaningful. A practical way to invite this perspective is to keep a simple, physical reminder. The ancient Romans might have kept a skull on their desk. For us, it can be far subtler. A specific coin in your pocket, a ring on your finger, a note on your mirror, or even a recurring notification on your phone. This object is not a symbol of doom, it is a tool for clarity. When you feel the flush of taking something personally, reach for that coin, feel its weight in your hand. Let it be a tactile trigger for the memento mori question. In this moment of perceived crisis, will this matter on my deathbed? The sheer scale of that question makes the current offense shrink. That colleague who dismissed your idea is not your arch nemesis. They are a fellow traveler on a very short road. Their comment is not a verdict, it is a whisper lost in the wind of years. This practice cultivates a profound sense of lightness and even humor. You start to see the absurdity in spending your brief, miraculous consciousness agonizing over whether someone liked your social media post or returned your greeting with enough enthusiasm. You are alive with a heart that beats and a mind that wonders, and you are choosing to use this incredible gift to worry about a frown across the room. Remembering death does not make life somber, it makes it vibrant. It urges you to spend your heartbeats on connection, creation, and kindness, not on collecting and polishing every single perceived slight. It teaches you to walk through the world with your head up, appreciating the sky rather than staring at the ground, worried about every pebble that might be thrown in your path. The insult loses its power because you have remembered you are on a much bigger, much more important adventure. A fortress already exists within you, waiting to be occupied. The Stoics called this the Inner Citadel, a mental stronghold where your core self and deepest values reside, completely separate from the chaos of the outside world. This is not about building walls to hide from life, but about constructing an unshakable sanctuary you can retreat to instantly whenever you feel besieged by another person's words. Your worth, your character, your peace, these are the treasures kept inside, and they cannot be touched by any insult hurled from beyond the gates. To access this place, you must first visualize it. Close your eyes for a moment and picture it. What does your citadel look like? Perhaps it is an ancient stone tower on a quiet hill, surrounded by a deep, still moat. Maybe it is a simple, serene room with a single window looking out on a calm sea. The imagery does not matter, only the feeling it evokes, one of absolute safety, quiet, and self-possession. This is the space where you are truly yourself, untouched by anyone else's opinion. Now imagine the drawbridge is up, the door is thick and barred. Outside the walls, the world is noisy. People are shouting opinions, criticisms are flying like arrows, and social expectations bang on the gates like a battering ram. But inside, there is only the sound of your own breath. The walls are so thick that the shouting becomes a distant murmur, and the arrows clatter harmlessly against the stone before falling to the ground. This is your psychological immune system. When a verbal attack comes, your first move is not to fight on their battlefield, but to retreat mentally and immediately to your citadel. Your coworker makes a cutting remark about your presentation. Instead of engaging, you take one breath and in your mind, you step across that drawbridge and pull it up behind you. From within your stronghold, you look out at the comment. It is still there, you can see it, but it is now outside. It has been reclassified from a direct hit to your soul into merely an external event happening in the courtyard. From this position of calm detachment, you can assess it clearly. Does this comment align with my own values? Does it touch anything true about who I am inside these walls? Almost always the answer is no. The comment is about a performance, a piece of work, a momentary interaction, but it cannot reach the essence of you that you have safeguarded within. Your worth was never out there in the courtyard for them to judge. It was in here all along, defined by your own integrity, your efforts, and your choices. Retreating to your inner citadel is the ultimate act of remembering that you are the sole guardian of your self-esteem. No one can grant it to you, and no one can take it away unless you hand them the keys. By practicing this mental retreat, you train yourself to stop outsourcing your sense of value. You stop checking other people's faces to see if you are good enough, and you start consulting the quiet, unwavering knowledge within your own walls. The noise of the world fades into background static, and the voice that matters most, your own, becomes crystal clear. The inner citadel provides a refuge, but you still must speak when you step back into the world. Your words can either reinforce your peace or shatter it completely. This is why the 11th technique focuses not on what you think, but on what you choose to say. The Stoics advise to speak little and well. This is a deliberate strategy for self-protection. When you feel provoked, when a comment feels personal, your first, raw impulse is to fire back, to defend, to explain, to correct. That impulse is a trap. It pours gasoline on a spark. Speaking little and well means installing a filter between that spark of emotion and the words that leave your mouth. You become slow to speak, especially when you most want to be fast. You ask yourself a simple, 3-part test before any response, especially a heated one. Are these words necessary? Are they true? Are they kind? If they fail any one of these checks, you hold them back. This is not about suppressing your feelings, it is about mastering them. In that moment of perceived attack, your goal is not to win the argument, it is to protect your own character and peace. A harsh reply might feel justified, but it will inevitably pull you deeper into the conflict, making the situation personal for both of you. It hands control of your emotional state over to the other person. By choosing silence or by choosing only words that pass the 3-part test, you keep that control firmly within your citadel. Think of a time someone cut you off in a meeting. The immediate, unfiltered reaction might be to interrupt them, to say, "You are not even listening," or to make a sarcastic comment under your breath. That reaction makes it personal. It escalates. Now apply the filter. Is it necessary to call them out publicly in that moment? Perhaps not. Is my sarcastic comment true to my best self? No. Is it kind? Clearly not. So you say nothing. You simply let their comment hang in the air. That thoughtful silence is not weakness, it is immense strength. It is a void the other person often does not know how to fill. Their provocation expects a reaction, a fight. Your calm silence denies them that fuel. It disarms them completely. It also gives you the space for your higher mind to engage. After a pause, you might then speak well. You could say, "I would like to finish my point," or "Let us come back to that idea in a moment." These words are necessary to guide the conversation, true to your intention and kind in their neutrality. They de-escalate everything. This practice transforms you from a reactor into a responder. You stop being a puppet whose strings are pulled by every rude comment and become a conscious author of the dialogue. Every time you swallow a cutting remark, you are not losing. You are winning a private victory over your own impulsiveness. You are proving to yourself that your self-worth is not tied to having the last word. The power of thoughtful silence is that it often makes the other person hear their own words more clearly, and in that hearing, they frequently realize how unnecessary or unkind they were. Your composure holds up a mirror to their agitation, and that mirror is far more persuasive than any counter-argument you could have shouted. Silence can be a fortress, but what if you could turn the very person provoking you into an architect of your own strength? Every difficult person you meet is a hidden instructor assigned to a very specific curriculum, your own. This is the 12th technique, seeing the teacher in every person. It is a complete reframe of conflict. Instead of asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this person here to teach me?" Your impatient colleague is not a nuisance. They are a professor of patience giving you a pop quiz right now. The overly critical family member is not a judge. They are a coach for humility, showing you where your pride is still a little too tender. The person who cuts you off in traffic is not an enemy. They are a personal trainer for your anger management, offering you a free, real-time rep to practice letting go. When you adopt this lens, the entire dynamic shifts. The other person is no longer an attacker. They are an unwitting and often unwilling trainer. Their behavior is not a weapon, it is a training tool. This does not mean you approve of their rudeness or accept abuse. It means you extract value from the interaction regardless of their intentions. You are mining the situation for personal growth gold. After a tense exchange, instead of replaying the insult, you conduct a brief debrief with yourself. You ask what virtue was being tested here. Was it my patience when they repeated the same complaint for the third time? Was it my courage when I had to state a boundary? Was it my compassion when I realized their anger was really a cry for help? By identifying the lesson, you transform a personally hurtful event into a valuable training session. The sting of the comment becomes the soreness after a good workout, a sign that you have stretched a part of your character that was previously stiff. Think of it as emotional jiu-jitsu. You are using the energy of their attack, their negativity, their difficulty, and redirecting it toward your own development. They are pushing against you, and you are using that resistance to build stronger emotional muscles. That person who always seems to dismiss your ideas is not trying to crush your spirit. They are, in a strange way, teaching you conviction. Every time you calmly restate your point without aggression or defensiveness, you graduate from their unorthodox class. The goal is to reach a point where you can look at the most challenging people in your life and feel a flicker of gratitude, not for their behavior, but for the unparalleled opportunity they provide. They are the sandpaper to your rough edges, the heavy weight for your resilience. Without them, you would remain untested and therefore underdeveloped. Your character would be a theory, not a practice. By seeing the teacher in every person, you reclaim all the power. You stop being a student in their school of hard knocks, and you become the principal of your own academy of virtue, where every interaction is part of the syllabus. The world becomes a classroom, and everyone, especially the difficult ones, has something to offer your education. That teacher in the difficult person shows you what you can survive, but there is a deeper truth to uncover about why their words had power in the first place. We often believe our happiness is tied to specific external conditions, like receiving praise or avoiding criticism. The 13th technique is a mental experiment that shatters that illusion, the art of subtraction. You deliberately remove the very thing you think you need, and you observe what remains. This is not about giving up your goals, it is about discovering your true foundation. Here is how it works. Identify the specific external thing you are taking personally right now. Perhaps it is your boss's approval of your project. Maybe it is an invitation to a social event you were excluded from. It could be the desire for a particular person to like you. Now perform the subtraction mentally with clear intention. Imagine that approval is permanently withheld. Picture that invitation never arriving. Accept that this person will never think highly of you. Do not just think about it, feel it. Let the disappointment, the sting, the sense of loss wash over you for a moment. Then ask the crucial question, now that I have subtracted this, what is left of me? Look closely at your core self. Your ability to be kind, your capacity for hard work, your sense of humor, your integrity, are these gone? No, they are entirely intact. Your potential for virtue remains untouched. Your breath still fills your lungs. The sun will still rise tomorrow. You have just proven through direct experience that your fundamental well-being and your ability to live well were never actually dependent on that external thing you coveted. It was only your judgment that linked the two. You believed you needed that approval to be happy, but the subtraction reveals you only wanted it. There is a monumental difference between a need and a want. A need is essential for survival, like air or water. A want is a preference, a hope, something that would be nice to have. When someone denies you a want, it is disappointing. When someone denies you a need, it feels like a threat to your existence, and that is why we take it so personally. We mistakenly elevate our wants to the status of needs. The art of subtraction demotes them back to their proper place. Let us make this concrete. You worked hard on a proposal and your client rejects it. You are taking it personally, feeling like a failure. Subtract the client's approval. Imagine they said no. Now look at what remains. Your research skills are still there. Your creative thinking is still there. Your work ethic is still there. The rejection did not erase any of that. It only denied you one specific outcome. Your happiness, your worth as a professional was never stored in their yes. It was always in your effort, your diligence, your ability to adapt, all of which you still possess in full. This realization is incredibly liberating. It means their no is not a verdict on your entire being. It is simply information about one path that is now closed, freeing you to redirect your energy toward another. You stop seeing them as a gatekeeper to your success and start seeing yourself as the source of it. The next time you feel the hot pinch of taking something personally, pause and subtract. Mentally remove the thing you feel you have lost or been denied. Sit in the space of its absence. Then, take an inventory of your inner resources that are still shining, undiminished. You will find a quiet, unshakable confidence waiting for you there, a confidence that proves you were never as fragile as you feared. The insult loses its personal weight because you have seen that the core of you, the part that truly matters, is impervious to its touch. The subtraction experiment reveals a startling truth that most of what we fight to possess or avoid is, in the grand Stoic scheme, neither good nor bad. This brings us to the 14th technique, a fundamental reclassification of the entire world around you, the practice of indifference to indifference. The Stoics drew a clear, radical line through reality. On one side of the line are the only things that are truly good, your own virtue, your character, your integrity, your reason. On the other side are the only things that are truly bad, vice, cruelty, injustice, the corruption of your own soul. Everything else, and this is the vast majority of human experience, falls into a third category, the indifference. Your health, your wealth, your reputation, success, failure, praise, criticism, comfort, pain, these are all classified as indifference. The word does not mean you do not care about them. It means they lack the moral weight to make you a better or worse person. They are like the material of a sculpture. The marble itself is neither good nor bad. What matters is the skill and virtue of the sculptor who shapes it. An indifferent event, like a compliment or an insult, is just a block of marble handed to you. Your character is the sculptor. The insult is not good or bad in itself. Your response to it, however, can be. If you respond with rage and spite, you have used that block of marble to carve a statue of vice. If you respond with patience and understanding, you have used the exact same material to create a statue of virtue. The event itself is neutral, indifferent. All the power rests in your hands, in your choice of how to use it. This is why the Stoics could face immense hardship with calm. Exile was an indifferent. Poverty was an indifferent. Even physical pain was largely an indifferent. These things could not touch the core good, which was their character. They could use even these harsh materials to practice courage, endurance, and self-control. For us, this means learning to see praise and blame through the same lens. When someone praises you lavishly, that is an indifferent. It feels wonderful, but if you internalize it as proof of your worth, you are making a mistake. You are handing your self-esteem over to an external event. You are letting the weather outside dictate the climate inside your house. The praise is a sunny day. Enjoy the warmth, but do not build your foundation on it, because storms will come. When someone blames or insults you, that is also an indifferent. It feels terrible, but if you internalize it as proof of your failure, you are making the same mistake in reverse. You are letting a storm outside flood your inner home. The practice is to receive both with the same calm detachment. You acknowledge the praise with a simple thank you without letting it inflate your ego. You acknowledge the criticism with a thoughtful consideration without letting it deflate your spirit. You hold both lightly, knowing that neither one has the authority to alter the truth of who you are. Your character is not a scoreboard kept by other people. It is a private ledger of your own choices, moment by moment. So the next time a compliment sends you soaring or a critique sends you spiraling, pause. Label the event for what it is, an indifferent. Then turn your attention away from the event itself and toward the only thing that truly matters in that moment, your own sculpting hand. Ask yourself, how will I use this material? Will I use this praise to cultivate humility or arrogance? Will I use this insult to cultivate resentment or resilience? The power shifts dramatically. You are no longer a leaf blown by the wind of opinion. You become the tree, deeply rooted in your own virtue, noticing the weather but knowing it cannot change your nature. The wind may howl, but your roots hold firm because you have learned the profound freedom of caring deeply about the right things and holding all the rest with a wise and steady indifference. Rooted in your own virtue, the world's opinions become mere weather. Yet even the sturdiest tree benefits from daily care, a routine to strengthen its growth against every season. This brings us to the 15th technique, a simple yet transformative daily ritual that builds your resilience brick by brick, the morning and evening review. This is not about adding more to your to-do list. It is about installing a gentle, consistent system for upgrading your emotional operating system. It takes just a few quiet minutes, but its compound effect over time is extraordinary. Let us start with the morning. Before the day's noise begins, find a moment of stillness. The goal here is not to worry, but to prepare. Cast your mind forward to the day ahead. Where might you face a test of your equanimity? Perhaps you have a difficult conversation scheduled, or you will be presenting work for feedback, or you will simply be navigating the crowded, unpredictable space of other human beings. Identify one or two potential friction points. Now, here is the key move. Do not just anticipate the problem. Pre-commit to your Stoic response. Resolve to meet that specific challenge with grace. Silently state your intention. If my colleague questions my approach in the meeting, I will listen fully and respond with facts, not defensiveness. If the traffic is terrible, I will use the time to listen to an audiobook, not curse at other drivers. You are programming your subconscious, laying down neural pathways for the person you choose to be before the heat of the moment arrives. You are the general reviewing the battle plan before the first shot is fired. Then comes the evening. As your day winds down, you return to your inner citadel for a brief, compassionate debrief. This is absolutely not an exercise in self-criticism or beating yourself up for perceived failures. That would be the opposite of Stoicism. Instead, you adopt the calm, curious stance of a scientist reviewing data. Look back over your interactions. Ask yourself with gentle honesty, where did I take something personally today? Where did I feel that familiar sting, that tightening in the chest? Maybe it was when your partner seemed distracted during your story, or when a friend cancelled plans last minute. Identify the moment, then without judgment, play it back. Now apply your Stoic toolkit. Ask, what technique could I have used? Could I have applied the view from above to see the insignificance of that moment? Could I have remembered the dichotomy of control and released my grip on their actions? Could I have stripped away the painful story to see only the bare fact? This review is a rehearsal for next time. You are analyzing the game film to improve your performance. You are not blaming the player, you are coaching them. Perhaps you realize you took a comment personally because it touched on a hidden insecurity. That is valuable data. Your evening review has just illuminated a weak spot in your emotional armor, not to shame you, but to show you exactly where to apply the polish tomorrow. The magic of this daily loop, morning preparation and evening reflection, is that it turns every single day into a personalized training camp. The morning sets your intention, the evening provides your feedback. Over weeks and months, this consistent practice rewires your automatic responses. What used to trigger a day-long spiral of resentment becomes a minor blip you notice and navigate with a quiet, internal smile. You stop being a passive recipient of life's slings and arrows and become an active, daily architect of your own unshakable peace. The goal is not perfection, but progress. Some evenings you will review and see clear growth, other evenings you will see a missed opportunity. Both are equally valuable, both are fuel. This ritual builds the long-term resilience that makes all the other techniques second nature, until one day you realize the things that once ruined your mood now barely register as a whisper on the wind. A wry smile can be your secret weapon against taking offense. The 16th technique is to find the humor, to consciously adopt a light-hearted, almost amused perspective toward the predictable folly of human behavior, especially when it is aimed at you. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who ruled one of history's most powerful empires, would privately remind himself of the absurdity in seeking praise from people he himself did not even admire. He saw the pettiness, the posturing, the fragile egos clamoring for status, and he chose to view it not with anger, but with a kind of philosophical bemusement. This is not about mockery or cruelty. It is about recognizing the inherent comedy in the situation where someone is trying to provoke you, to get a rise out of you, as if your emotional state were a lever they could pull. From a detached vantage point, it is genuinely funny. Think of a small child having a tantrum, stomping their feet because they cannot have a second cookie. As an adult, you do not take the child's screams as a personal indictment of your parenting. You see the oversized emotion attached to a trivial cause, and you might even suppress a smile at the sheer drama of it all. Now scale that up to adult life. A colleague sends a snippy email over a minor formatting error, their words dripping with disproportionate gravity. Seen through the lens of humor, it is the same dynamic, a grown adult having a tantrum over a digital cookie. The content of their message might need addressing, but the emotional charge behind it becomes something you can observe with a quiet, internal chuckle. This mental shift is a powerful diffuser. When you feel the hot surge of taking something personally, pause and look for the absurdity. What is the actual stakes here? Is someone genuinely furious about the font you used in a slide? Are they crafting elaborate narratives because you did not immediately like their social media post? The gap between the immense emotional energy being expended and the triviality of the cause is where humor lives. Choosing to see that gap allows you to respond from a place of calm strength rather than from a triggered, defensive crouch. You are not laughing at the person, you are smiling at the universal human tendency to make mountains out of molehills, a tendency you yourself are now learning to overcome. That smile, even if it never reaches your lips, changes your entire biochemistry. It releases tension. It signals to your nervous system that this is not a threat but a spectacle. It transforms the other person from an intimidating adversary into a fellow actor in a slightly ridiculous play. The next time you are on the receiving end of a petty barb, try it. Mentally step back, put on your director's hat, and watch the scene unfold. See if you can spot the exaggerated performance, the fragile ego, the comedic mismatch between effort and outcome. Finding that thread of humor does not mean you condone bad behavior. It simply means you refuse to let it poison your inner peace. You acknowledge the folly, you address what needs addressing, and you let the rest roll off your back with the grace of someone who knows a better joke. A fig tree will never, no matter how much you plead or demand, produce a single olive. Its nature is to produce figs. This is not a moral failing of the tree, it is simply a fact of botany. The 17th technique applies this same unflinching logic to the most frustrating source of our personal offense, other people. It is the acceptance of a universal law: human beings act according to their own nature. When someone is rude, dismissive, or selfish, they are producing the fruit of their own deeply rooted character, their own beliefs, their own ingrained habits. They are being a fig tree. To take their behavior personally is to stand beneath that tree, shaking your fist at the figs, screaming that they should be olives. It is a profound waste of energy born from a fundamental misunderstanding of reality. You are expecting a fig tree to violate its own nature for your comfort. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this. He would note that it is ridiculous to be surprised when a dishonest person lies or to be offended when a vain person seeks praise. To expect otherwise is to ignore the clear, observable laws of the world. Your coworker who always takes credit for team efforts is not suddenly going to become generous because you wish it. Their nature in this context is to seek personal recognition. When they do exactly that, your hurt feelings are not a response to a personal attack, but to your own dashed expectation that they would act out of character. Your friend who is chronically late is not trying to disrespect your time. They are following their nature, which is disorganized or overly optimistic about travel time. Their lateness is a fig. To be enraged by it every single time is to demand olives from a tree that has never grown them. This perspective is not cynical. It is clear-eyed. It asks you to see people as they are, not as you hope they might be. When you interact with someone, you are not interacting with a blank slate you can write your ideal script upon. You are interacting with a complex living system with years of growth, weathering, and ingrained patterns. Their words and actions are the fruit of that entire history. So, when the fruit is bitter, the Stoic move is to look at the tree. Ask yourself, what does this behavior tell me about their nature? This person just insulted me. That tells me their nature in this moment includes insecurity or poor emotional control or a lack of tact. This person just broke a promise. That tells me their nature includes unreliability or overcommitment or a different hierarchy of values. By diagnosing the nature, you depersonalize the event. It is no longer about you. It is a data point about them. You stop asking, why are they doing this to me, and start observing, this is what they do. This is how this particular tree bears fruit. This understanding then informs your own actions, not your emotions. Knowing you are dealing with a fig tree, you do not plant it in your olive grove and then bemoan the harvest. You plant it where figs are wanted, or you choose not to plant it at all. In human terms, this means you adjust your expectations and your boundaries based on your clear-eyed assessment of their character. You do not entrust a chronically late friend with getting you to the airport on time. You do not share your most vulnerable idea with a colleague known for harsh criticism. You interact with them according to their demonstrated nature, not your hopeful fantasy. This protects you from repeated offense and allows you to engage with a sense of calm realism. You can even feel a strange compassion. That person, trapped in their own flawed nature, is like a tree bent by a constant wind, unable to grow straight even if it wanted to. Your job is not to straighten the tree, but to stop being surprised by the direction of its growth. When you fully internalize this law, a weight lifts. You stop taking the world's rudeness as a referendum on your worth and start seeing it as a simple catalogue of human shapes, each growing according to its own stubborn, inevitable design. Your peace comes from no longer arguing with botany. You have just accepted that a fig tree will never bear olives, but there is a risk in that clarity, a risk of becoming a passive observer in your own life. True freedom from the opinions of others is not found in mere acceptance, but in a deliberate, almost playful form of self-challenge. The 18th technique is the practice of voluntary discomfort, a way to build active immunity to the sting of social judgment. This is not about seeking pain, but about intentionally choosing small, manageable doses of social friction to prove to yourself, beyond any doubt, that you can survive and even thrive without the constant drip of external validation. Think of it as a vaccine for your social anxiety. A vaccine introduces a weakened version of a virus so your immune system can learn to recognize and defeat it. Voluntary discomfort introduces a controlled version of social unease so your confidence can learn that these feelings are not threats, but merely sensations you can handle. The goal is to desensitize yourself to the very fear that makes you take things personally, the fear of being judged, of looking foolish, of not being liked. So, what does this look like in daily life? It means seeking out minor, harmless situations where you willingly step outside the invisible lines of social conformity. You might choose to wear a simple, plain outfit to a gathering where others are dressed up, not to make a statement, but to quietly observe your own reaction to potentially standing out. You might deliberately engage in a conversation at a party where you suspect your contributions might be overlooked or ignored, practicing the art of speaking without the need for a guaranteed attentive audience. You could order the cheapest item on the menu at a business lunch, or admit you have not seen the popular show everyone is discussing. In each case, you are not trying to be rude or alienate others. You are conducting a personal experiment. You are placing yourself in a situation where the old, fearful part of your brain whispers, people will think you are weird or poor or out of touch. And then you wait, you observe what actually happens. 99 times out of 100, nothing happens. The world does not end, no one points and laughs. The conversation continues, the meal is eaten. You discover that the terrifying social judgment you feared was almost entirely a phantom, a story your mind told to keep you safely within the herd. But more importantly, you observe your own internal landscape. You feel the initial flutter of anxiety, the heat of self-consciousness, and then you watch it subside because you are choosing it. You are in control. This repeated, chosen exposure teaches your nervous system a new truth, that mild social discomfort is not dangerous. It is just a feeling, and like all feelings, it passes. Each time you voluntarily step into that small zone of unease and come out the other side perfectly fine, you build a little more emotional muscle. You prove to yourself that your sense of worth is not dependent on blending in seamlessly or receiving constant positive feedback. You learn that you can be okay even when you are not the center of positive attention, or even when you are momentarily the subject of someone's mild confusion or indifference. This practice strips the power from other people's potential opinions because you have already faced the worst-case scenario you imagined, and you found it was not only survivable but trivial. When someone later makes a casual, critical remark, your subconscious has a new reference point. It remembers that time you wore the mismatched socks on purpose and the sky did not fall. That critical comment now feels like just another small wave in the ocean of social interaction, not a tidal wave meant to drown you. You have built a tolerance. You have vaccinated yourself against the need for universal approval, and in doing so, you have forged a quiet, unshakable confidence that comes from within. A confidence that knows it can handle a little social wind and rain without seeking shelter in everyone else's good opinion. Your social tolerance grows stronger, but your attention is still a spotlight you can aim in two very different directions. One direction leads to anxiety and powerlessness, the other to action and peace. This is the 19th technique, understanding the circle of concern versus the circle of influence. Picture two circles, one inside the other. The outer, massive circle is your circle of concern. This contains everything you care about, worry over, or think about. It is vast. It includes global events, the economy, the weather, the past, the future, and most relevantly, what every single person thinks of you. Your boss's opinion, your neighbor's gossip, the stranger's glance, the critic's review, the silent judgment you imagine from an acquaintance. This circle is endless, exhausting, and almost entirely outside your control. You can spend your entire life, all your mental and emotional energy, running laps around this gigantic perimeter, trying to manage the unmanageable, to control the uncontrollable. This is the source of taking things personally. You are trying to police a territory that does not belong to you. Now look inside that large circle. There is a smaller, more focused circle nestled within it. This is your circle of influence. This contains the things you can actually change through your own thoughts and actions. Your own judgments, your responses, your efforts, your attitude, your integrity, the words you choose to speak today, the work you choose to do with care. This circle is humble, but it is sovereign. It is your kingdom. The fundamental mistake that causes us pain is that we invert these circles. We pour our finite energy into the vast outer ring, trying to sculpt other people's opinions, while we neglect the small, powerful core where our true authority lies. We act as if the outer circle is our responsibility and the inner circle is an afterthought. The Stoic correction is simple and deliberate. You must consciously, daily, withdraw your attention and effort from the circle of concern and reinvest it completely into your circle of influence. You stop trying to manage perceptions and start mastering your own conduct. Let us make this practical. You are about to give a presentation. Your circle of concern is chattering loudly. What if they think I am unprepared? What if my voice shakes? What if that one person in the back looks bored? These are all worries about other people's internal reactions, which you cannot control. Your energy is being siphoned away before you even begin. Now, shift your spotlight to your circle of influence. What can you actually control? You can control how thoroughly you prepare. You can control practicing your opening until it is smooth. You can control taking 3 deep breaths before you start. You can control focusing on delivering value to the audience rather than monitoring their faces for approval. By pouring your energy into this inner circle, you become competent and calm. Ironically, this often leads to the positive reception you were hoping for in the outer circle, but that becomes a side effect, not the goal. Your self-worth is no longer tied to it. Apply this to a personal slight. Someone makes a rude comment about your choice. Your circle of concern wants to obsess over why they said it, what it means about their opinion of you, how you can make them retract it. This is a bottomless pit. Your circle of influence asks a different set of questions. How will I choose to interpret this? Will I respond or let it pass? Will I use this to reinforce my own values or let it shake them? Will I spend the next hour ruminating or will I redirect my focus to my next meaningful task? The moment you make that shift, you feel the power return to you. The comment is still out there in the big circle, but you are no longer out there with it, dancing to its tune. You have retreated to your command center, your circle of influence, and you are making decisions from a place of strength. Your peace is no longer hostage to their opinion because you have stopped paying ransom to the outer circle. You have chosen to cultivate the garden you can actually tend, and in doing so, the wild, untamable forest beyond the fence simply becomes scenery, not something you need to cut down and rearrange. Their opinion becomes just another tree in that forest, growing or not growing according to its own nature, while you focus on the seeds you are planting in your own soil. A perfect model of composure already exists within your mind, waiting to be consulted. The 20th technique invites you to step outside of your own swirling emotions and ask a simple, powerful question: what would the sage do? In Stoic philosophy, the sage is the ideal, a person of perfect wisdom, unshakable virtue, and complete emotional resilience. They are not a historical figure, but a psychological construct, a North Star for your own behavior. When you feel the heat of taking something personally, you pause the personal drama and you cast this imaginary sage into the scene. You watch them in your mind's eye navigate the exact same provocation. How do they react when faced with that sarcastic email, that public correction, that social snub? They do not flinch. They do not internalize. They observe the event with the detached curiosity of a scientist examining a natural phenomenon. They see the other person's behavior as a clear expression of that person's character, nothing more. Their own inner citadel remains perfectly serene. Then, with calm deliberation, they choose the action that aligns with virtue, not with wounded pride. They might respond with clarifying questions, or they might choose dignified silence. They might address a factual error without a hint of defensiveness, or they might simply note the comment and carry on with their work unperturbed. The sage's response is never about winning or saving face. It is about acting with integrity and maintaining their own peace. This mental exercise is not about pretending to be emotionless. It is about creating a behavioral template that exists beyond your immediate reactive feelings. Your initial personal hurt is the stormy weather. The sage is the steady climate. By asking what they would do, you are not denying your weather. You are simply looking past it to a clearer sky and then charting a course to get there. It gives you a script when your own mind is drawing a blank, consumed by the insult. For example, you are in a meeting and a colleague dismissively says your proposal is not even worth discussing. The personal reaction is a surge of anger and humiliation, but you insert the pause. You mentally place the sage in your chair. You watch. The sage hears the same words, feels the initial human sting, but then their reason engages. They see a person acting from arrogance or insecurity. They feel no need to defend their idea as an extension of their self. Calmly, they might say, "I would appreciate understanding your specific concerns so we can evaluate them." Or if the environment is too hostile, they might simply note, "I hear your position," and move the conversation forward. The sage's response is measured, purposeful, and utterly free from the need to prove a point. Your task is then to model as closely as you can that template. You are not the sage, but you can act as if you are training to become one. This does not mean your feelings vanish. It means you have a higher standard to reach for in that moment, a standard that guides your actions away from pettiness and toward principle. Over time, this practice rewires your instincts. You start to bypass the labyrinth of personal emotion and find a straighter path to virtuous action. The insult becomes less of a trigger for your ego and more of a cue to access this inner guide. You begin to understand that your greatest power in any social friction is not to react as your small self wants to, but to respond as your best self knows how. The sage is that best self fully realized, and by contemplating them, you pull your own character one step closer to that ideal, building resilience not from suppression but from inspired imitation. The sage provides a mental template, but your body still holds the shockwave of the insult. Your heart races, your breath tightens, your face flushes. These are not just thoughts, they are physical events, a cascade of chemistry that screams danger and demands an immediate defensive reaction. To stop taking things personally, you must learn to intercept that chemical signal before it hijacks your higher mind. This is the 21st technique, and it is the most immediate tool you possess, the conscious pause and breath. When the barb lands, when you feel that hot, personal sting, your very first action is not to think, not to speak, not to plan a rebuttal. It is to do nothing. You freeze, you create a deliberate physical silence, and in that silence you take 3 deep, slow breaths. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for a moment, exhale for a count of 6. This is not just spiritual advice, it is neuroscience. That surge of emotion you feel is a flood of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline preparing your body for a fight. Your sympathetic nervous system has been activated, narrowing your focus to threat and reaction. A deep, controlled breath is the direct override code. It stimulates your vagus nerve, the main cable of your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and digestion. It sends a direct signal to your brain that says, "Stand down, this is not a physical emergency." The pause creates a buffer, a tiny sanctuary of time between the provocation and your response. In that buffer, the chemical tide begins to recede, the heat in your chest cools. The frantic narrative in your mind loses its urgency. You are no longer a cork tossed in the emotional wave. You are an observer standing on the shore, watching the wave break and dissipate. Only then, after the 3rd exhale, do you allow yourself to consider a response. Think of it as installing a circuit breaker in your emotional wiring. The insult creates a power surge that would normally blow all your fuses, leaving you in the dark, reacting from pure instinct. The pause and breath is you, reaching over and flipping the breaker off before the surge can do any damage. You sit in the quiet darkness for just a few seconds, and then you restore power deliberately, with full control over which lights you want to turn on. Let us make this real. You are in a group chat and someone publicly criticizes a decision you made. The notification pops up, your stomach drops, your fingers fly to the keyboard, ready to type a defensive, sharp reply. This is the critical moment. You see your own hands moving. That is your cue. You stop, you lean back from the screen, you close your eyes if you can. You inhale slowly through your nose, feeling your diaphragm expand, and you exhale even more slowly through your mouth. You do this twice more. In those 15 seconds, something profound shifts. The comment is still there, but its personal charge has diminished. It has transformed from a dagger aimed at your heart into a sentence on a screen. Now, from this comma state, you can apply your other techniques. You can ask, is this within my control? You can see the teacher in their frustration. You can choose words that are necessary, true, and kind. The reply you now type is likely to be completely different, one that addresses the issue without escalating the conflict, one that protects your peace instead of sacrificing it on the altar of a momentary win. This practice turns you from a reactor into a responder. It is the foundational physical habit upon which all the mental techniques are built. Your breath is the anchor that keeps you from being swept away by the current of someone else's bad mood. It is the proof that you, and you alone, govern the climate inside your own skin. So the next time you feel that familiar twist of personal offense, let your first victory be a silent one, the simple, powerful act of choosing air over argument and space over spite. Your breath creates space, but the storm of thoughts can still circle in that space, looking for a place to land. Give those thoughts a landing strip, one that is not your own sense of self. The 20-second technique is to write it down, to use the simple, physical act of journaling as a defensive wall against taking things personally. This is not about keeping a diary of your days. It is about creating a courtroom for your emotions where you are both the plaintiff and the wise, dispassionate judge. When a comment or a situation burrows under your skin, do not let it fester in the dark corridors of your mind. Bring it into the light of the page. The process is straightforward but profound. Take a notebook or open a blank document and begin by describing the event in the plainest terms possible, just the facts. Then give your hurt feelings full, unfiltered voice. Write the angry letter you will never send. Pour out every ounce of resentment, every defensive argument, every whispered fear that their comment might be true. Let the child within you have its tantrum on the paper. This act of externalization is crucial. It moves the poison from your psyche onto a neutral surface where you can look at it objectively. Now, with the raw emotion captured, you shift roles. You put on your Stoic robe. You take that messy, emotional text and you begin to interrogate it with your toolkit. Apply the dichotomy of control. Circle every sentence that is about the other person's actions or opinions and label them "not in my control." Underline every sentence about your own reactions and judgments and label them "in my control." The page will visually show you where you are wasting energy. Then, dissect the narrative. What story are you telling yourself? Is it that they deliberately meant to humiliate you, or is the bare fact that they made a criticism in a tired tone? Write down 3 alternative explanations for their behavior that have nothing to do with you. Perhaps they were stressed about a looming deadline you knew nothing about. Maybe they were repeating a pattern they learned from a former boss. They could have simply been thoughtless, not malicious. Seeing these alternatives side by side with your painful story reveals its fragility. Finally, reframe the event. Write a new paragraph from the perspective of your future self looking back on this day. How would that wiser, you describe what happened and what was learned? Perhaps you would write, today, a colleague spoke harshly. It stung, but I saw it as a leak from their own overflowing cup of stress. I practiced not catching the ball of insult they threw. I am stronger for having remained calm. The magic of this written process is that it forces your swirling, reactive thoughts to slow down and move in single file. It converts a chaotic, internal feeling into structured, manageable sentences. almost every time by the time you reach the end of the page, the personal sting has lost its potency. The event looks smaller, clearer, and far less about you. The journal becomes a training log, not of your workouts, but of your emotional reps. Over time, you can look back at past entries and see your own growth, watching as yesterday's catastrophes become today's minor footnotes. You are not just thinking about Stoicism, you are doing it with pen and paper as your tools, building a documented history of your own rising resilience. That written record of your growth points to a startling possibility that the universe itself might be your most demanding, yet most beneficial instructor. The 23rd technique invites you to see every challenging social interaction not as random misfortune, but as a deliberately placed test from the cosmos. This is a profound shift from victimhood to studenthood. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this situation designed to teach me?" Imagine life as an intricate, personalized obstacle course built by fate. Each rude comment, each moment of unfair criticism, each social slight is not a pitfall meant to trap you, but a specific hurdle placed there to develop a particular muscle. The goal is not to avoid the hurdle, but to clear it with grace. Passing the test does not mean you make the other person be nice or that you win the argument. Passing means you navigate the event without taking it personally. You maintain your integrity and you keep your inner peace intact. You look at the provocation and you think, this is the patience station, or this is the humility gauntlet, or this is the forgiveness challenge. Suddenly, the interaction is imbued with a layer of meaning and a game-like challenge that transforms it from a painful ordeal into a meaningful exercise. Your coworker who always interrupts you in meetings is no longer just an annoying person. They are a precision tool the universe is using to train you in the art of assertive calm. That family member whose opinions always grate on you is not a burden. They are a master-level exam in the subject of unconditional respect. When you adopt this lens, your entire emotional relationship to difficulty changes. You stop dreading these moments and start leaning into them with a curious, almost competitive spirit. You think, "Okay, universe, you have thrown this at me. Let us see if I can handle it better today than I did last week." The pain of the insult becomes the burning sensation in a muscle being worked, a sign of growth, not damage. This perspective is incredibly empowering because it places you at the center of your own heroic journey. You are not a bystander being pelted by life's random debris. You are the protagonist in a training montage, and every antagonist is secretly a sensei in disguise. Their harsh words are not truths to be internalized. They are weights for you to lift to build your emotional strength. When you pass the test by responding with kindness instead of malice, with calm instead of rage, with detachment instead of absorption, you earn a credit no one can take away, the silent, internal satisfaction of knowing your character just leveled up. This reframe makes you grateful for the very people and situations you used to resent, because you understand they are providing the necessary friction for your soul to polish itself. The universe, in its strange wisdom, is not trying to break you with these tests, it is trying to forge you. And each time you choose not to take the bait personally, you prove you are made of stronger stuff, ready for the next, perhaps even greater, challenge that awaits. The final frontier in this journey is not out there in the world of other people, but deep within the quiet landscape of your own soul. All the external techniques, the reframing, the pauses, the perspectives, they are powerful tools. But they work best when applied to a structure that is already solid, a self that is already known. The 24th technique is the foundation upon which all the others ultimately rest, the cultivation of profound self-knowledge. The painful truth is that we take things personally precisely where we are personally unclear. An external comment only stings when it finds a hidden internal echo, a secret doubt we already harbor about ourselves. If you are utterly confident in your integrity, a comment about your honesty will glance off like a pebble against a mountain. If you know your own effort was genuine, An accusation of laziness feels like a bizarre misunderstanding, not a piercing truth. But if you are secretly unsure about your own competence, a single piece of vague criticism can feel like a confirmation of your deepest fear. The insult does not create the wound, it simply finds the crack that was already there. Therefore, the ultimate Stoic armor is built through ruthless, compassionate introspection. You must become the world's leading expert on you. This is not about narcissism, it is about cartography. You are mapping your own internal territory, so when someone throws a comment your way, you can instantly locate it on your map and say, that landed in the valley of my insecurity about public speaking, or that comment is trying to label a mountain I know to be a hill. To build this map, you must engage in deliberate self-inquiry. Set aside regular time for quiet reflection, free from distraction. Ask yourself the difficult, clarifying questions. What are my core, non-negotiable values? Not the ones you think you should have, but the ones that, when violated, cause you true anguish. Is it honesty? Loyalty, creativity, independence, write them down. Then, with equal honesty, identify your tender spots. Where am I most sensitive? Where does my ego live? Is it in my intelligence, my appearance, my likability, my productivity? Acknowledge these areas not with shame, but with the curiosity of a scientist studying a fascinating specimen, you. This process builds an internal benchmark, a clear, unwavering standard by which you measure yourself. Your worth is no longer a fluctuating stock price determined by the day's social market. It is a private valuation based on your own adherence to your principles and your honest effort. When you know with bone-deep certainty that you acted with integrity in a situation, someone's opinion that you were dishonest becomes irrelevant data. It is like someone insisting the sky is green. You might note their peculiar perspective, but you have no need to argue because you trust your own eyes and the collective evidence of reality. Your self-knowledge becomes your compass. Let us say a friend accuses you of being selfish for setting a boundary. If you have done the work, you can consult your internal map. Your value of self-respect is clearly marked. You know that setting a healthy boundary aligns with that value. Therefore, their accusation, while it might hurt because you value the friendship, does not shake your fundamental sense of being a good person. You can see their comment as a reflection of their own disappointment, not a true assessment of your character. You can respond with empathy without absorbing the false label. Without this self-knowledge, the same accusation would land like a dagger because you would have no internal counter-argument. You would be tossed into a sea of doubt, wondering, am I selfish? The external opinion becomes the only mirror you have to see yourself. But when you have cultivated self-knowledge, you hold your own mirror polished and clear. You can look into it and see your strength, your flaws, your growth, all with unflinching honesty. When someone holds up their distorted funhouse mirror to you, you might glance at it, see the grotesque image, and simply smile, knowing it is a trick of their lens, not a revelation of your soul. Their opinion becomes trivial not because you are arrogant, but because you are certain. You have moved from being a critic dependent on reviews to being the author who knows the true worth of the story they are writing, sentence by careful sentence every single day. Self-knowledge is the map, but the journey requires one final, decisive turn. The 25th technique is the ultimate alchemy, the moment you stop defending against the attack and start mining it for gold. This is the practice of turning every obstacle into fuel, of actively asking one transformative question about the criticism that stung you. Even if this was said to hurt me, is there a single grain of truth here I can use to grow? This question is not an admission of defeat, it is a declaration of total independence. It flips the script so completely that the person who intended to diminish you becomes, without their knowledge or consent, an accidental benefactor to your progress. The personal sting evaporates because you have repurposed its energy. You are no longer a victim of their words. You are a prospector sifting through the sediment they threw at you, looking for a valuable fleck of ore. Imagine someone says your presentation was confusing and lacked clear data. The personal reaction is to feel attacked, to defend your hard work, to list all the data you did include. The sting comes from hearing your effort dismissed. Now apply the final turn, pause, breathe, set aside their tone, their possible malice, their delivery. Look only at the content of the statement. Was the presentation confusing to at least one person? Is it possible my data could have been presented more clearly? You are not agreeing with their harsh judgment. You are conducting a neutral audit of the feedback. You might find a grain of truth. Perhaps your opening could have been sharper. Maybe one chart was too busy. That grain of truth is pure gold. It is actionable intelligence you can use to become a better presenter. The critic, in their clumsy, perhaps mean-spirited way, has just handed you a free consultation, pointing directly at a weak spot you can now reinforce. Their power to offend you vanishes the moment you say, "Thank you for pointing that out. I will work on my clarity." You have taken their weapon and melted it down into a tool. This works even with the pettiest of insults. Someone mutters that you are always late. The personal sting wants to argue. List the times you were early, blame traffic. The final turn asks, is there a grain? Have I been pushing my timing too close lately? Could I build in a 5-minute buffer? If the answer is yes, you have just been given a free reminder to improve your punctuality. If the answer is no, and you know you are consistently on time, then the comment is simply false data, noise you can dismiss without emotional entanglement. You have investigated and found nothing of value, so you discard it calmly, like sorting a piece of trash from the recycling. The goal is to make yourself immune to offense by becoming relentlessly focused on utility. Your ego steps aside and your inner craftsman steps forward, examining every piece of material that comes your way, asking only, "Can I use this?" When you operate from this principle, you render criticism powerless. People can no longer hurt you with truth because you are already seeking it more eagerly than they are weaponizing it. And they cannot hurt you with lies because you will quickly identify them as worthless and discard them without a second thought. You become undefeatable not through thick skin but through permeable, discerning intelligence. Every interaction becomes a potential source of refinement. The world is no longer divided into friends and foes but into teachers and irrelevant noise. This is the final, liberating turn of the Stoic mind, where you stop seeing obstacles on the path and realize you are standing on them, using their solid resistance to climb higher, to see further, to become someone that no passing comment, however sharp, could ever truly touch. 25 distinct tools now rest in your hands, each one a key to a different lock on the cage of personal suffering. From the cosmic perspective of the view from above to the immediate, physical anchor of your own breath, this is a complete toolkit for constructing an inner self so secure, so clearly defined that the opinions of others simply lose their power to penetrate. The goal has never been to become a stone, emotionless and cold. It is to become the mountain, feeling the wind and the rain but remaining unshaken, knowing the storm is a passing event, not a part of your foundation. It is about reclaiming the space between what happens and how you choose to respond, and filling that space with wisdom instead of reflex. Your peace is not a fragile thing to be sheltered from the world. It is a fortress you build within, brick by daily brick, using these very techniques as your blueprint. This is the promise of Stoicism made practical, a way to navigate a noisy, often critical world without letting that noise become the soundtrack of your mind. You now have the maps, the drills, and the mental models. The transformation begins not with mastering all 25 at once, but with the deliberate choice to practice just one. This week, pick a single technique that resonates with you. Perhaps it is the discipline of assent, creating that critical pause before you judge. Maybe it is the art of subtraction, proving to yourself what you truly need. It could be as simple as the 3-breath rule before you react. Carry that one practice with you. Test it in your conversations, in your inbox, in the quiet moments of perceived slight. See how it changes the temperature of your day. Then we would love to hear from you. Come down to the comments and share what happened. Which technique did you try and what did you discover? Your story could be the very thing that helps someone else find their first step toward freedom. If this journey into practical wisdom has been valuable for you, consider subscribing. Each week, we break down more ancient ideas into modern, actionable tools for building a life of resilience, focus, and quiet confidence. Thank you for watching, and remember, the world will always have its opinions, but your peace is yours to design, starting with your very next breath.